The emergency lights blinked red across the broken hallway. Smoke and dust floated in the air like tiny ghosts. Lieutenant Park moved carefully through the destroyed ship, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. Behind her, two other members of her team followed with their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The passenger ship had been beautiful once, had seen pictures of these vessels in her training days. They were elegant things, designed by a proud species who valued art as much as function. Now it was nothing but twisted metal and scattered debris. The attack had been savage, pirates most likely, the kind who did not care about lives, only about what they could steal and sell. The human research vessel Horizon's Grace had picked up the distress signal 3 days ago. They had come as fast as they could, pushing their engines beyond safe limits. But space was vast, and 3 days was a lifetime when you were dying. Had not expected to find survivors. The ship's main sections were open to space. The life support systems had failed long ago. This was not a rescue mission anymore. It was a recovery operation. They were looking for bodies to return to families, data to explain what had happened, anything that might bring closure to those who had lost loved ones. Her scanner beeped. Stopped walking and looked at the small device in her hand. The screen showed a faint signal, a life sign, weak but real. "That's not possible," said Sergeant Lee, looking over her shoulder. His voice was rough with disbelief. "Nothing could survive in here for 3 days." The scanner doesn't lie. Adjusted the settings and pointed the device down a side corridor. The signal grew stronger. "This way." They moved faster now, stepping over fallen panels and broken furniture. The corridor led them deeper into the ship, toward the residential sections. Noticed children's drawings on some of the walls, held up by magnets that still clung to the metal despite everything. Bright colors, happy shapes, ships and stars and families holding hands. She forced herself to keep moving. The signal led them to a small room at the end of the hallway. The door was sealed shut, and a red light above it indicated that the emergency protocols were active. This section had been designed to survive exactly this kind of disaster. Pressed her hand against the access panel, and her suit's computer began working on the lock. "Lieutenant," said quietly, "if there's a survivor in there, you know what that means." Knew they were not friends of humanity. Decades ago, there had been a first contact that went badly wrong. Misunderstandings, cultural clashes, and one terrible accident had created a wound that had never healed. The tolerated human presence in shared space, but they did not welcome it. They certainly did not allow humans to interact with their children. "I know what it means," said, "but I also know there's someone alive in there who needs help. That matters more than politics." The door slid open with a hiss of escaping air. The room inside was an emergency pod, barely large enough for 2 adults to stand in. Emergency supplies lined the walls in neat containers. A small heating unit hummed in the corner, its power almost depleted. And in the center, wrapped in a silver thermal blanket, was a cub. His breath caught in her throat. He was tiny, so much smaller than she had expected. Adults were tall and graceful, with features that reminded humans of the great cats of Earth. But this little one was all soft fur and big eyes and trembling limbs. His fur was silver blue, like moonlight on water. His eyes were large and amber-colored, and they stared at with a mixture of fear and desperate hope. He could not have been more than 8 months old. "Oh no," whispered Corporal, the 3rd member of the team. Her voice cracked. "Oh no, the poor thing." The cub made a sound. It was not quite a cry and not quite a whimper. It was something in between, something that needed no translation. It was the sound of a child who had been alone in the dark for 3 days, waiting for someone to come. Moved before she could think about regulations or politics or the proper chain of command. She knelt down and opened her arms, and the cub practically threw himself at her. His small body was cold despite the thermal blanket. His 4-fingered hands grabbed her uniform with surprising strength, and he pressed his face against her neck. He was shaking. His whole body was shaking. "It's okay," said softly. She wrapped her arms around him and held him close. "It's okay. I've got you. You're safe now. I've got you." The cub made that sound again, but softer this time. His shaking began to slow. Could feel his heartbeat against her chest, fast and frightened like a small bird. "Lieutenant," said, "we need to report this. The captain needs to know." "I know." Did not look at him. She was too busy running her hand gently over the cub's back, feeling the softness of his fur, the fragile bones beneath. "Just give me a minute." She stood up carefully, keeping the cub secure in her arms. He was lighter than she expected. Had he eaten anything in those 3 days? Had he slept at all? How did a baby survive alone in the dark while his whole world fell apart around him? Looked at the emergency pod. There were 2 thermal blankets, but only one had been used. The food supplies had been opened, but only the containers suitable for an infant. Someone had put him in here. Someone had sealed the door and activated the emergency systems and made sure this tiny life would have the best chance of survival. His parents, probably. His mother or father in those last terrible moments had chosen to save their child. Felt tears building in her eyes. She blinked them back. There would be time for grief later. Right now, this little one needed her to be strong. "Let's go," she said to her team. "We're taking him back to the ship." The walk back to the shuttle felt longer than the walk in. Carried the cub the entire way, refusing offers from and to help. The cub had stopped shaking, but he had not loosened his grip on her uniform. Every few minutes, he would lift his head and look at her face, as if checking to make sure she was still there. "I'm not going anywhere," told him each time. "I promise." On the shuttle, she sat in the medical chair and let run a basic scan while she continued to hold him. The cub was dehydrated and underweight, but otherwise healthy. He had no injuries. Whatever violence had destroyed the ship had not touched him directly. But the scans also confirmed what had feared. The ship's manifest had been partially recovered. The cub's family name was listed among the passengers. Parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. 17 in total, all traveling together for some kind of family gathering. 16 bodies had been found in the wreckage. The cub was the only survivor. Held him, he made a small sound, almost like a purr, and nestled closer to her warmth. "What are we going to do with him?" asked quietly. Looked down at the small face pressed against her chest. Those amber eyes had closed at last, and his breathing had become slow and steady. He was asleep. After 3 days of terror and loneliness, he had finally found enough safety to rest. "I don't know," admitted, "but I'm not going to let anything bad happen to him, whatever it takes." She did not know his name yet. She did not know what the future held. But as the shuttle carried them back to the horizon's grace, made a silent promise to the sleeping cub in her arms. She would protect him. She would care for him. She would make sure he knew that even in a universe that had taken everything from him, there was still someone who would fight for him. She just did not know yet how much that promise would change her life. Captain was not a man who raised his voice. In his 20 years of service, he had learned that quiet authority worked better than shouting. But standing in the medical bay of the horizon's grace, watching his lieutenant hold an alien child like it was the most natural thing in the world, he found himself struggling to stay calm. "You should have reported this the moment you found him," he said. His voice was level, but his eyes were hard. "Before you brought him on board, before you held him, before any of this." Stood her ground. The cub was asleep in a small bed that Dr. Han had prepared, wrapped in clean blankets and connected to a hydration drip. He looked peaceful for the first time since she had found him. His silver-blue fur rose and fell with each breath, and his small hands twitched occasionally as he dreamed. "With respect," Captain said. "He was dying, he needed immediate help. Reporting could wait." "Could it?" Stepped closer to the bed and looked down at the sleeping cub. His expression softened slightly, but only slightly. "Do you understand what you've done? The High Council is going to demand his return. They don't let outsiders touch their young. They certainly don't let humans raise them. This could become a diplomatic disaster. I didn't raise him. I saved his life. And now what? We hand him over to strangers who will put him in an institution, shook his head. Their orphanages are not like ours, Lieutenant. They don't believe in adoption outside of blood relations. He'll be raised by the state, cared for but not loved. Is that what you want for him? Felt her chest tighten. No, that's not what I want. Then what do you want? She did not have an answer. Or rather, she had an answer, but it was so impossible that she could not bring herself to say it out loud. She wanted to keep him. She wanted to raise him. She wanted to be the one who held him when he had nightmares and taught him words and watched him grow. But she was a human military officer on a research vessel. He was an alien child from a species that hated her kind. The universe did not work like that. I want him to be safe, she said finally. I want him to be happy. I'll figure out the rest. Studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed and rubbed his temples. I've sent messages to the High Council, multiple messages. No response yet. Until they answer, he stays here under medical supervision. Dr. Han will be responsible for his care. I can help, said quickly. I want to help. I'm sure you do. The captain's voice was dry. Just try not to get too attached, Lieutenant. This situation is temporary, remember that. He left without another word. Stood alone in the medical bay, listening to the soft beep of monitors and the quiet breathing of the sleeping cub. Temporary. The word echoed in her mind like a warning. But when she looked at that small form in the bed, so vulnerable and alone, she could not make herself believe it. Dr. Han entered a few minutes later, carrying a tablet full of research. She was a small woman with kind eyes and a practical manner, the kind of person who could handle any crisis with calm efficiency. She had been the ship's doctor for 5 years, and there was very little that surprised her anymore. But even she seemed moved by the cub. I've been studying biology, she said, sitting down next to. Their dietary needs are different from ours but not impossible to meet. They're carnivores primarily. High protein, low carbohydrates. We can synthesize appropriate food in the galley. What about, hesitated, what about emotional needs? How do I know if he's okay? Gave her a knowing look. You've already decided to take care of him, haven't you? The captain said it's temporary. That's not what I asked. Looked at the sleeping cub. His ears twitched slightly, responding to some sound in his dreams. I found him. He was alone and scared and he came to me. I can't just hand him off like a package and forget about him. Nodded slowly. Cubs form strong bonds with their primary caregivers. It's similar to imprinting in some Earth species but more complex. They communicate through touch, scent, and sounds that humans can't hear. Under normal circumstances, a cub would never bond with a non. But these aren't normal circumstances. No, they're not, looked at the cub thoughtfully. He has no family left, no one from his own species to bond with. His instincts are probably confused, searching for anyone who can provide safety and comfort. You gave him that. Whether you meant to or not, you've started something. What do you mean? I mean he's going to attach to you. Maybe he already has, and breaking that attachment later, shook her head. It won't be easy for either of you. The cub stirred in his bed. His amber eyes opened slowly, blinking against the soft light of the medical bay. For a moment, he looked confused and frightened, his small body tensing as he tried to remember where he was. Then he saw, and everything changed. His ears perked up. His eyes widened. He made a small sound, a chirp of recognition, and reached toward her with both hands. His heart melted. She moved to the bed and lifted him gently into her arms. He immediately snuggled against her, his face pressed to her shoulder, his small hands gripping her uniform. The tension drained out of his body like water, and he made that purring sound again, the one that vibrated through her chest. "Well," said softly, "I think the decision might have been made for you." Over the next few weeks, learned more about cubs than any human had ever known. She learned that they slept in short bursts throughout the day rather than one long period. She learned that they needed physical contact almost constantly, especially when stressed. She learned that they were highly intelligent, understanding complex ideas long before they could express them. She also learned that this particular cub had a stubborn streak a mile wide. He refused to sleep unless was nearby. He refused to eat unless she was in the room. When she left for her duty shifts, he would sit by the door of the medical bay and wait, his ears flat against his head, his tail wrapped tightly around his body. Doctor tried to comfort him, but he would not be soothed by anyone else. "This is getting ridiculous," said one evening, finding asleep in a chair beside the cub's bed for the third night in a row. "You can't keep this up. You have duties." "I know," his voice was thick with exhaustion. "But when I leave," he cries, not loudly, not dramatically, just this quiet little sound like his heart is breaking. "I can't stand it." "You need to set boundaries." He's a baby who lost everything. He's not being difficult on purpose. He's scared. Sighed, I know he's scared, but what happens when they come for him? What happens when you have to let go? Looked at the cub sleeping peacefully beside her. In the past weeks he had gained weight and energy. His fur had become soft and shiny. His eyes had lost some of their haunted look. He was healing, slowly but surely. Because of her. "Maybe they won't come," she said quietly. "Maybe they'll leave him with us." "And if they don't?" Did not answer. She could not. The thought of losing him now was too painful to consider. So she pushed it away and focused on the present, on this moment, on the small, warm body curled up beside her. She had started calling him. It meant sky in Korean, the language of her grandmother's lullabies. She had chosen it because of his eyes, those wide amber pools that reminded her of summer afternoons on Earth, lying in the grass and watching clouds drift across the endless blue. He did not know his real name. The ship's records had been too damaged to recover personal information. So he became, and he would stay. "My little Sky," whispered, brushing her fingers through his fur. "Whatever happens, I'll be here, I promise." The cub purred in his sleep, and let herself believe that everything would be okay. She did not know how wrong she was. 6 months had passed since found in the wreckage. 6 months of sleepless nights and difficult days. 6 months of learning and failing and trying again. 6 months of loving a child who should never have been hers. The High Council still had not responded to any messages. Captain had sent 17 formal requests for guidance. 17 times, silence was the only answer. It was as if they had decided to pretend the cub did not exist. Maybe they had. Culture did not handle orphans well. Children without family were considered bad luck, a sign of broken bloodlines and failed ancestors. The state would care for them, yes, but only in the most basic sense. Food, shelter, education, nothing more. No one would adopt them. No one would love them. They would grow up alone, always reminded that they were unwanted. Refused to let that happen too. So she had stopped waiting for permission. She had moved him into her quarters, set up a small bed beside her own, and taken over his care completely. The captain had objected at first, but even he could see that the arrangement was working, was thriving in a way he never had in the clinical environment of the medical bay. But thriving did not mean easy. Cubs were supposed to be raised by. Their development depended on complex biological and social signals that humans simply could not provide. They communicated through scent markers that human noses could not detect. They bonded through subsonic purrs that human ears could not hear. Their emotional language was built on thousands of years of evolution that had never included creatures like. She was trying to raise a child, using a language she could not speak. Some nights would wake up screaming, not crying, screaming. The sound was high and sharp and filled with terror, and nothing could make it stop. She would hold him and rock him and whisper soft words, but he was somewhere else, trapped in memories of fire and darkness and the terrible silence after the attack. Those nights were the hardest. "You're not sleeping again," Doctor said one morning, finding in the mess hall with dark circles under her eyes. "This is becoming a pattern." He had another nightmare, stared at her cold coffee. 3 hours of crying, nothing helped, he just had to get through it. "Have you considered that maybe this is too much? That maybe he needs professional help?" "What kind of professional? There are no child psychologists on this ship. There are no at all." His voice was sharper than she intended. "I'm all he has." Sat down across from her. "I'm not criticizing you. I'm worried about both of you. You're running yourself into the ground." "I'm fine." "You're not fine. You've lost weight. You've been late to 3 duty shifts this week. The crew is starting to notice." Reached across the table and touched her hand. "Let me help. Let others help. You don't have to do this alone." Wanted to argue, but she was too tired. The truth was, she was struggling. Every day felt like a battle against invisible enemies. She did not know if she was doing things right. She did not know if was happy or just surviving. She did not know if her love was enough to replace everything he had lost. "I don't know what I'm doing," she admitted quietly. "I thought it would get easier. I thought we would figure it out together. But some days I feel like I'm failing him." "You're not failing him." "How do you know?" Smiled. "Because I see how he looks at you. Like you hung the stars in the sky, like you're the center of his universe. That's not a child who feels failed. That's a child who feels loved." Wanted to believe her. She wanted to believe that love was enough, that her stumbling efforts were making a difference, that knew how much she cared even when she could not express it in his language. But doubt was a heavy thing, and she carried it with her every day. That evening, she returned to her quarters to find waiting by the door. He had learned to recognize the sound of her footsteps in the hallway, and he was always there when she arrived, his ears perked up, his tail swishing with excitement. "Mama home," he said. Froze. Had been learning words slowly over the past few months. Human words, since there was no one to teach him. His vocal cords were not designed for human speech, so every word came out rough and strange, but he tried so hard. He had mastered food and sleep and more and no. He had learned to say in his own way, turning it into something softer and shorter. But he had never said "mama" before. "What did you say?" Knelt down to his level, her heart pounding. Tilted his head, his amber eyes curious. "Mama home," he repeated. "Wait, mama home now." Tears pricked its eyes. She blinked them back and pulled him into a hug, holding him tight against her chest. He made his happy purring sound and wrapped his arms around her neck. "Yes," she whispered, "Mama's home." She did not know where he had learned that word. Maybe from the crew, who talked about their own families during meal times. Maybe from the videos had given him to watch, cartoons about human children and their parents. Maybe he had figured it out on his own, connecting the concept of mother to the woman who fed him and held him and stayed with him through his nightmares. It did not matter where it came from. What mattered was that he had chosen it. He had chosen her. That night, for the first time in months, slept through without a single nightmare. He curled up beside in her bed, his small body pressed against her side, his breathing slow and steady, and lay awake watching him, filled with a love so big it felt like it might break her apart. She thought about her own mother back on Earth. They had not spoken in years, had left home young, running away from expectations and traditions she did not want. Her mother had wanted her to marry, to have children, to live a normal life in like generations of park women before her, had wanted something else, something more, something among the stars. She had found it in the most unexpected way. "I understand now," she whispered to the sleeping cub. "I understand why she held on so tight, why she couldn't let go, why she cried when I left." Stirred slightly, making a soft sound in his sleep. Being a mother is terrifying, continued. Every day I'm scared I'm going to mess this up. Every day I'm scared I'm not enough for you, but I can't stop. I won't stop. Because you're my son now, you're my family, and I will never ever leave you. She meant every word. But the universe had other plans. 3 weeks later, the Horizon's Grace received a transmission from the High Council. After months of silence, they had finally decided to respond. A delegation was being sent to retrieve the cub. They would arrive in 2 months. Read the message 3 times, each time hopping the words would change. They did not. The cold, formal language made it clear that there was no room for negotiation. The child belonged to the people. He would be returned to his kind. She did not tell. He was too young to understand. Instead, she held him close and told him stories about the sky, about stars and planets and the endless wonders of space. She made him laugh with funny faces and silly sounds. She gave him all the love she had left to give. And at night when he was asleep, she allowed herself to cry. 2 months was not enough time. 2 months would never be enough. She wanted years with him. She wanted to watch him grow up. She wanted to see him become the person he was meant to be. But wanting did not change anything. The clock was ticking and did not know how to make it stop. The day started badly and got worse. Had been assigned to lead a survey mission on a nearby asteroid. It should have been routine. Scan for minerals, collect samples, return to the ship. 3 hours of work, nothing dangerous. But space had a way of surprising people. A micrometeorite storm appeared without warning. His team barely made it back to the shuttle in time. Corporal took a hit to her suit's life support system. She survived, but only because gave up her own oxygen reserves for the return trip. By the time they reached the Horizon's Grace, was barely conscious. Doctor kept her in the medical bay for observation. 2 hours of tests and fluids and worried looks. Hated every minute of it. All she could think about was waiting for her in their quarters, not understanding why his mother had not come home. When finally released her, walked through the ship on unsteady legs. The corridors seemed longer than usual. The lights seemed too bright. Her body was exhausted, but her mind would not stop racing. Images from the storm kept flashing through her head. The darkness, the debris, his frightened voice on the radio. She had almost died today. She had almost left alone. The thought made her stomach twist. What would have happened to him if she had not made it back? Who would have taken care of him? The crew liked him well enough, but none of them had the bond she shared with him. None of them could be his mother. He would have been alone again, just like when she found him. Pushed open the door to her quarters. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of the night light she had installed for. He was sitting on the floor near the window, surrounded by the magnetic blocks that the engineering team had made for him. He loved those blocks. He could spend hours building towers and walls in strange shapes that only made sense to him. But he was not building anything now. He was just sitting there, staring at the door, waiting. His ears perked up when he saw her. His amber eyes went wide. "Mama." He scrambled to his feet and ran toward her, his small legs moving as fast as they could. Knelt down and caught him in her arms, pulling him close. He smelled like the special soap had made for his fur, something gentle that would not irritate his skin. He felt warm and solid and real. She was here, she had made it back, he was safe. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his fur. "I'm sorry I was late, I'm here now." Pulled back and looked at her face. His expression was serious, more serious than a child his age should be. He studied her carefully, taking in the dark circles under her eyes, the pallor of her skin, the way her hands were shaking. "Mama hurt?" he asked. "No, baby, Mama's just tired." "Mama sad?" The question caught her off guard. She had tried so hard to hide her feelings from him. The news about the delegation, her fears about the future, the constant weight of uncertainty, she had kept it all locked away, determined not to burden him with adult worries. But children were perceptive, had always been perceptive. "A little sad," she admitted, "but being with you makes me feel better." Seemed to accept this. He snuggled closer to her, his head resting against her shoulder, carried him to the small couch by the window and sat down, settling him in her lap. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly past, cold and distant and beautiful. Mama said, "Yes. Why stars so far?" It was the kind of question he asked sometimes. Big questions that had no easy answers. Where did the ship go? Why was space so dark? What happened to people when they went away and did not come back? Had learned to answer as honestly as she could without overwhelming him. "Stars are far because the universe is very big," she said. "So big that it takes light years and years to travel from one place to another. But even though they're far, we can still see them. We can still reach them if we try hard enough." Reach stars? Yes, someday, if you want to, you can go anywhere you want. You can see everything there is to see. He was quiet for a moment, processing this. Then, Mama come too. His throat tightened. In 2 weeks the delegation would arrive. In 2 weeks she might lose him forever. The future they were imagining, traveling together among the stars, it might never happen. But she could not tell him that. Not now, not yet. "I'll always be with you," she said softly. "No matter what happens, I'll always love you." Nodded, satisfied with this answer. He yawned, his small mouth opening wide to show his tiny teeth. It had been a long day for both of them. He had been waiting for hours, probably worried sick, even if he did not have the words to express it. "Time for sleep," said, starting to rise. But something was wrong. She had been holding herself together for hours, pushing through the exhaustion and the fear and the aftermath of almost dying. Now, in the quiet of her quarters, with her son warm in her arms and the stars watching through the window, all of it came crashing down. She thought about nearly dying because of a random rock in space. She thought about her own oxygen running out, the blackness creeping at the edges of her vision. She thought about what would have happened if she had been a few seconds slower, a few meters further away. She thought about sitting alone in this room, waiting for a mother who would never come home. The tears came without warning. They were not quiet, dignified tears. They were the ugly kind, the kind that shook her whole body and made sounds she could not control. Months of stress and fear and love and doubt poured out of her all at once, and she could not stop them no matter how hard she tried. His ears flattened against his head, his eyes went wide with alarm. "Mama, Mama." He had never seen her cry like this. She had always been careful to hide her weaker moments, to present a calm and steady presence that he could rely on. Now that mask was shattered, and she could see the fear in his eyes as he watched her fall apart. "I'm sorry," she gasped between sobs. "I'm sorry, baby, I'm okay, I just—" But was not listening. He was moving, climbing up her chest until he could press his forehead against hers. It was a gesture of deep affection, one he had started doing weeks ago without anyone teaching him. Instinct, maybe, genetic memory, or maybe just love finding its own way to express itself. His small hands came up to her face. They were soft and warm, with tiny claws that pricked gently against her skin. He patted her cheeks, wiping at the tears the way she did for him when he cried. "Mama," he said. His voice was rough and strange, the human word shaped by vocal cords, but it was clear, so clear. "Mama, no cry, here, love Mama." She sobbed harder. "Mama okay," he insisted, patting her cheeks more firmly. "Mama strong, Mama brave, no, see." "I don't feel strong," she whispered. "Still strong." He pulled back and looked at her with those ancient amber eyes, so full of wisdom for such a young soul. "Mama save, Mama keep safe, Mama strongest person in whole sky." He pressed his forehead to hers again and purred. The sound vibrated through her bones, deep and soothing, filling her with warmth she could not explain. It was like being wrapped in a blanket of love, like being told without words that everything would be all right. "Always with Mama," he said. "Mama always with that what family is, forever and ever." Held him tight and cried until she had no tears left. And through it all, her son stayed with her, purring his comfort, patting her face, giving her the same unconditional love she had given him for the past year. When the tears finally stopped, she felt empty but somehow lighter, like a storm had passed and left clear skies behind. "I love you," she told him. "I love you so much it scares me sometimes." "Love good," said simply. "Scary things not always bad. Mama teach that." She laughed. It was a wet, shaky sound, but it was real. "When did you get so smart?" "Always smart," he yawned again. "Now sleep time, Mama need rest, doctor say so." "Did she now?" "Spy know everything." Despite everything, smiled. She gathered him in her arms and carried him to the bed, tucking him in beside her. He curled up against her side like he always did, his warm body fitting perfectly against hers. "Good night, my little Sky," she whispered. "Night-night, Mama," he mumbled. "Love you to the stars and back." Within minutes, he was asleep. Lay awake for a long time, listening to his breathing, feeling the gentle vibration of his purr. The delegation was coming. The future was uncertain. There were battles ahead that she might not win. But right now, in this moment, she had everything she needed. She had her son. And nothing in the universe would take him from her without a fight. The ship was beautiful in the way that weapons are beautiful, sleek and silver, with curves that caught the light like water. It docked with the horizon's grace at exactly the time they had promised, not a minute early or late. Were precise in all things. Watched through the observation deck window as the docking clamps engaged. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Beside her, held her hand with both of his small claws leaving faint marks on her skin. He was 4 years old now, tall for his age, his silver-blue fur sleek and healthy. He understood what was happening today. She had explained it as gently as she could. "People are coming to meet you, people who look like you, they want to talk to us." She had not told him the rest, that they might take him away, that this might be their last day together. She could not find the words. Captain appeared at her side. He was older now than when she had first brought aboard, more gray in his hair, more lines around his eyes. 3 years of fighting bureaucratic battles for her had taken their toll. He had never said it out loud, but knew he cared about the cub almost as much as she did. "The delegation has 3 members," he said quietly. "Elder is leading them, she's high-ranking, important. This is not a casual visit." "What does that mean for us?" "I don't know." He put a hand on her shoulder. "But whatever happens in there, remember that you've done nothing wrong. You saved a child's life. You raised him with love. No one can take that away from you." Nodded, but she could not speak. Her voice was trapped behind the lump in her throat. The meeting was held in the main conference room. Walked in with beside her, refusing to let go of his hand. The 3 were already there, standing in a row like statues. They were tall and graceful, with fur in shades of silver and gold, their amber eyes watchful and unreadable. Elder stood in the center. She was the oldest of them, her fur touched with white at the muzzle, her bearing radiating authority. She wore ceremonial robes embroidered with symbols that did not recognize. Beside her stood 2 younger, male and female, their expressions carefully neutral. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Elder's gaze dropped too, something flickered in her eyes. Surprise, maybe, or curiosity. "This is the child," she said. It was not a question. "Yes," his voice came out steadier than she expected. "His name is." "That is not a name." "No, I gave it to him. It means sky in my grandmother's language." Studied her with those ancient eyes. "You are the human who found him, who raised him." "Yes." "Why?" The question was simple, but the answer was not. Thought about all the reasons she could give. because he needed someone, because no one else was there, because it was the right thing to do. But those reasons felt hollow, incomplete. They did not capture the truth. "Because I love him," she said finally. "I found him alone and scared, and I could not leave him that way, so I stayed. I took care of him, and somewhere along the way he became my son." His expression did not change, but something shifted in her posture. She turned to and knelt down, bringing herself to his eye level. It was a graceful movement, unhurried and dignified. "Child," she said, "do you know who I am?" Nodded slowly. He had been quiet since they arrived, his ears flat with anxiety, his tail wrapped around his leg. But he did not hide behind. He faced directly, his small chin lifted. "You are," he said, "like me. Yes, we have come a long way to see you, to bring you home, to your people, to your proper place." His grip on his hand tightened. "Your blood is," continued. "Your ancestors were. You belong among your own kind, where you can learn our ways and grow into the person you were meant to be." For a terrible moment thought it was over. She thought would nod and accept, that he would go with these strangers because they looked like him, because some instinct deep inside told him he belonged with them. She prepared herself for the loss, for the pain, for the goodbye she had been dreading for months. But did not nod. "No," he said. The word was quiet but firm. It echoed in the silent room like a stone dropped into still water. His eyes widened slightly. "No. This is my home," stepped closer to, pressing against her leg. "She is my people, my mama." "Child, you do not understand. We can give you—" "I understand." His voice was stronger now, more certain. "I know I look different from her. I know I come from somewhere else. But she found me when I was alone. She kept me warm when I was cold. She held me when I was scared. She taught me words and stories and how to count the stars." He looked up and his amber eyes were bright with fierce love. "She is my mama," he said. "I am her son, that is what family is, and I am not leaving her." Silence fell over the room. Stared at the child for a long moment. Then she rose slowly and turned to face. Her expression had changed. The cold neutrality was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like wonder. "He calls you mother," she said. "Yes," his voice cracked. "I did not teach him that word, he chose it himself. Cubs do not bond outside their species. It has never happened in our recorded history. Our biology, our instincts, everything tells us to seek our own kind. Look back at. And yet this child looks at you as if you are his whole world." "I don't know how to explain it," said. "I just loved him, that's all I did." Was quiet for a long time. The two younger exchanged glances, clearly uncertain. This was not how they had expected things to go. Finally spoke again. "We have studied humans for many years. Your wars, your conflicts, your endless contradictions. We thought we understood your species. We thought we knew what you were capable of." She shook her head slowly. "We did not understand this. That you could love a child not of your blood, not of your species, as completely as any mother has ever loved her own. That he could love you in return with equal strength." She turned to her delegation. "The child will remain where he belongs," she said, "with his mother." The female stepped forward. "Elder, the council will not." "The council will accept my decision." His voice left no room for argument. "We came here to retrieve an orphan and place him in state care. Instead, we found a child who already has a family, a real family. To separate them would be a cruelty that shames our people." She turned back to and did something that no human had ever seen her do. She bowed. Not deeply, but enough to show respect. "You have given this child what we could not," she said. "You have given him love. Take care of him, human, he is precious." "I will." Tears were falling freely now, but she did not care. "I promise I will." Nodded once. Then she turned and walked toward the door, her delegation following behind her. At the threshold she paused and looked back. "The people have been wrong about humans," she said. Perhaps it is time we learn to see you differently." And then they were gone. Stood frozen, unable to believe what had just happened. Her legs felt weak. Her heart was racing. She had been prepared to fight, to beg, to do whatever it took. She had not been prepared for this. Tugged at her hand. "Mama, why are you crying?" She laughed, the sound mixing with her sobs. She knelt down and pulled him into her arms, holding him so tight that he squeaked in protest. "Because I'm happy," she whispered. "Because I get to keep you, because you're mine now and forever." "I was always yours," said simply. "I chose you a long time ago, the day you found me." "I know, baby, I know." She held him for a long time, there in the empty conference room, while the ship undocked and disappeared into the darkness of space. Captain found them there later, still holding each other, and he smiled the first real smile had seen from him in years. "Congratulations, Lieutenant," he said. "It seems you're officially a mother." Looked down at her son, at his silver fur and amber eyes, at the small face that had become the center of her universe. "I always was," she said. "I just needed the universe to catch up." That night sent a message to Earth, to the mother she had not spoken to in years. "Mama," she wrote, "I have something to tell you. I have a son. He is not human, but he is mine in every way that matters. I finally understand why you held on so tight. I finally understand what it means to love someone more than yourself. I hope someday you can meet him. I hope someday you can forgive me for staying away so long. I love you. I always did." She attached a picture of smiling his crooked smile, his ears perked up, his eyes full of joy. Then she went to bed, where her son was already waiting for her, curled up in the warm spot she always left for him. "Mama," he murmured sleepily. "Yes, my little Sky. I'm glad I found you." She kissed the top of his head, breathing in the familiar scent of his fur. "I'm glad I found you too." Outside the window, the stars turned slowly, cold and distant and beautiful. Somewhere out there, the ship was carrying a message back to the High Council, a message that would change how they saw humanity, a message that began with a single word, spoken by a child who had learned to love against all odds. "Mama." In the end, that was all it took. One word. One choice. One family, built not from blood but from something stronger. From love.